Hi everyone and welcome to the webinar today. My name is Chris Jasinski. I am joined by Bonnie Gembrin and Gerard Kabarsi. We are your partnerships team here at the online 401k. The topic for discussion today is Safe Harbor, specifically how Safe Harbor fits into 401ks and you. So without further ado, let's get right into the agenda. So the first topic of discussion, we're going to go over a brief overview of why you should be starting a 401k to begin with if you have not done so already. Then into the meat of the topic, which is what exactly is Safe Harbor, why financial advisors recommend their clients use it, or payroll providers recommend their clients use it, or why employers themselves decide to elect it in their 401k plans. And then we'll be going on to some of the advantages and risks of not using a Safe Harbor in your 401k plan. And then finally, we'll wrap up this webinar today with some action steps that you can use to incorporate Safe Harbor into your 401k plan. So, as I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to briefly overview is why you should be starting a 401k plan if you haven't done so already. If it's something that you're considering, it's important to know that first and foremost, from an employer standpoint, there are substantial tax benefits for the small business to providing a 401k for the entire company. Another important reason why you should be starting a 401k is that you can attract and retain employees. When 401ks first came out, they were considered a luxury in the benefits package offered to employees. Now they're becoming more of a standard in the industry. And finally, why start a 401k? Well, it actually benefits the employers and the employees. It's important to have a vehicle for everyone at your company, including yourself if you're a business owner, save for their retirement. So that's just a brief overview. I'm going to hand it off to Bonnie Gembrin now to talk about what Safe Harbor actually is and how it fits into 401k.
Thanks, Chris. So what is Safe Harbor? It's kind of a weird term. I know it sounds like we're talking about ships and boats and things, but it's actually a provision that satisfies non-discrimination rules for elective deferrals and employer matching contributions. So even if a plan adds Safe Harbor and no employees decide to use that option, so they don't actually contribute their money and don't receive a match, there's a couple of different formulas that we're going to go over in a little bit here. But if they don't contribute, don't get the match at all, by simply stating in your document that you're offering Safe Harbor match, you're covered for compliance reasons. So sometimes that could mean that only the owner or highly compensated employees actually end up contributing Safe Harbor or contributing deferrals to the plan and getting that Safe Harbor match. But simply by offering it to the employees, you're covered, and you won't have to worry about testing and failing that test. So it's a great option to have. For a 401k plan to be considered a Safe Harbor plan, employers have to satisfy certain contribution, vesting, and notice requirements. And what I mean by that is that Safe Harbor funds are always 100% vested. So unlike employer matching contributions or employer profit sharing contributions, which can be subject to a vesting schedule, Safe Harbor is not subject to those vesting schedules. It's always 100% vested. And it also has to be in line with whatever deferral waiting period you have. So if you have a 6-month eligibility period on your employees deferring money to the plan, you wouldn't be able to say, well, we're going to wait 12 months for the Safe Harbor portion. It goes right along with that. So employees will always be able to start getting that match as soon as they're eligible to start contributing their own money to the plan. So another thing you'll have to keep in mind is there is a notice that goes out with Safe Harbor, but we actually attach that to the welcome email. So new employees that are hired automatically receive a welcome email when they're eligible, and attached to that will be that Safe Harbor notice. So no fear of missing that and forgetting to pass it out. We take care of that for you. We also post it on our website, so you're covered by compliance that way. Sometimes it's helpful. Some employers still go about sending out an email or just handing it out with their employee benefits package. That's great. It's always nice to remind employees of this great benefit that you're offering, but again, not required. because we have that in place on our website. So as Chris said, it's a common component of plans today. If you're going to do a company contribution of any kind, it's great to remember that safe harbor is really probably what you should look at first. If you're going to do a profit sharing, that's great. If you want to do an additional match, that's great. But safe harbor is really going to be the only thing to protect you, so you should just check into that first, especially if you were thinking you were going to do, let's say, a 4% match. Might as well make sure you label it in your document as safe harbor and therefore get the benefits of automatically passing testing and not worrying about that at the end of the year. Small companies, professional groups, or similar firms with high concentration of highly compensated employees, those are the types of plans and companies that will want to think about adding safe harbor to their plan. If you think about it this way, if you have a company that's heavily weighted on the owner and highly compensated employee side, then that plan is more likely to fail testing if they are not safe harbor. Meaning that if there are, let's say, 5 owners or highly compensated employees and only 2 rank and file non-highly compensated employees, and those owners want to max out, that is probably going to lead to a failure of testing if they are not safe harbor, because the employees, if you only have 2 of them and they, let's say, make a lot less than the owners, they're bound to probably not contribute nearly as much, and then by being so far away from the other group, so there's a certain limit that you can be away from your employees as far as contribution levels. So if you're contributing a lot and they're contributing a little, and we'll break it down for you a little further more, but that's going to cause a failure in testing. So just make sure that you check for your clients if those clients have a heavily weighted company where it's a lot of highly compensated employees and owners and just a few non-owners. Those are the plans that will need safe harbor in order to make sure that they don't run into testing issues. So, and then a third point here is that it definitely increases participation of the rank and file employees. A lot of employees that wouldn't normally contribute to a plan, if there's a match being offered, they're definitely going to take a second look and probably want to put in some money and not miss out on that match. So make sure that employees know about it, and that will increase participation for sure. So one other thing I should mention, safe harbor contributions are due on your tax filing deadline. So most companies do match on a per pay period basis, but they aren't actually due in the plan until your tax filing deadline. So just keep that in mind as you explain this to your clients. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gerard, and he will tell us a little bit about why safe harbor.
Thanks, Bonnie. Now that Bonnie filled us in on exactly what safe harbor is, I'm going to discuss some of the reasons why you should really consider using this provision in your plans. It allows the employer to safely contribute the maximum deferral amount for the year and benefit from receiving a match from the company as well. It's important to remember that employers are employees too, so even if they contribute $17,500, which is the max for 2014, they will also receive a 3% or however much they have elected to contribute to each employee. What also happens is that Safe Harbor makes the plan exempt from IRS non-discrimination testing, and the matching contributions are tax deductible. And this leads to more savings with less hassle. Now, when choosing a Safe Harbor match, there are several formulas that you can take a pick from, and you can choose which one would best suit your company. The first one we have here is the 3% non-elective contribution to all employees. That is a 3% match of each employee's compensation, regardless of whether or not they contribute to the plan. The second one we have available is 100% on the first 3% of compensation deferred and 50% on the next 2% of the compensation deferred. And this one, while it may not look like it, is called the basic match. Next is a 4 to 6% match contributed to all participants, which is 100% matching dollar for dollar up to the first 4, 5, or 6% contributed to the plan. The 4% match is actually the most commonly chosen option when selecting Safe Harbor for your plan, and it is actually one of the options available in our Express K level of service. Now I'm going to bring it over to Chris to give us a little overview on what we discussed today.
Thanks for that, Gerard. So thank you both, Gerard and Bonnie, for giving us a pretty detailed breakdown of what that looks like. What I'm aiming to do right here in this next section is to summarize the real bottom line advantages of having a safe harbor provision in your 401k plan. So the first and foremost, especially if you're an employer or if you're an advisor talking with an employer, is that having a safe harbor in your 401k allows the owner and top-tier employees to maximize their contributions. This is an important thing. When you have a 401k plan in place, people that make a certain amount of money, the highly compensated employees, are going to want to put as much as possible in many scenarios. Having a safe harbor will allow them to do that without you as the plan sponsor needing to worry about testing. Which brings me to my next point, is that having a safe harbor in your 401k plan completely eliminates testing requirements. We've already had some discussion today about the annual IRS testing to make sure that there is no over-contribution and no unfair treatment of non-highly compensated employees. Having a safe harbor provision, again, in your 401k plan eliminates this requirement, and you do not need to go through that testing if you have a safe harbor in your plan. Next, it can increase participation rate and it boost employee morale. Who doesn't like a happy company and happy employees? Having that extra connection and extra benefit of the employer actually putting down a dollar-for-dollar match to their employees' contributions can have a very positive effect on an office environment. And lastly, having a safe harbor doesn't exclude you from including a profit-sharing provision in your plan. If you want to put it in a safe harbor as a provision, you can also have a profit sharing. So I also like to talk about some of the risks and summarize what you might be liable to if you do not have safe harbor in your plan. So first and foremost, if you fail testing that the IRS would put you through every year, what would happen as a result is that key employees would have to take refunds from their investments. So in other words, if an employee highly compensated contributes too much to their 401k and it is above a certain average of the rank and file employees' contributions, they will have to take that back. So in turn, what that means is that owners and highly compensated employees may not realize full savings potential. So without safe harbor, all highly compensated employees will specifically be limited to defer only 2% more than the average of all eligible non-highly compensated employees. So let me give you an example of that. You're an employer and you have a highly compensated employee that contributes 9% of their paycheck to their 401k plan. If you don't have a safe harbor in your plan and you go through testing and the test reveals that on average your rank and file or your non-highly compensated employees are on average contributing only 5%, that is a 4% difference between the average of your non-highly compensated employees' deferral amount and the 9% of that one highly compensated employee's deferral amount. And what that will result in is that highly compensated employee having to take a refund to bring that percentage down to 7%, which is 2% above the average of 5%. So in other words, what that means is that if you have a highly compensated employee or you as the owner want to max out your 401k contribution, not having a safe harbor provision in your plan will actually limit you and you might not realize your full savings potential. So now I'm going to hand it over to Bonnie once again, and she's going to let you know some of the action steps that you can take this year specifically if you are considering safe harbor as an option for your 401k plan.
Thanks, Chris. First, I just want to mention some deadlines that are pretty important. If you have clients who are on the verge of signing up for a plan, or maybe they've been talking about it, and you think that they're going to need safe harbor, keep in mind that they must have their plan established by September 15th, 2014 in order to be safe harbor for this year. So they can sign up for a plan after September 15th, but the plan won't be safe harbor for this year. They're going to have to wait until 2015 in order to be safe harbor. So just keep that in mind. The reason for that is that the notice needs to be distributed to employees by October 1st. So it gives us 2 weeks to get your document amended or get it in place and get those notices distributed to employees. The same goes for a profit sharing only plan. If you have a plan that's about to sign up and they're considering it or not, you just want to make sure that they know that they have until September 15th to get that plan in place in order to be safe harbor for 2014. If there's an existing plan that wants to be amended for safe harbor for 2015, they need to get that, they need to notify us by November 15th, and that is so that notices can go up to employees by December 1st in order to be safe harbor for January 1, 2015. And the reason for that is that they just need to make sure that that we have time to make those notices. So although they have to be distributed December 1st, make sure you let us know by November 15th so that we can get those organized and out to employees. And also another thing to mention, you can't add safe harbor mid-year. So it's really important that if you are going to be safe harbor for 2015, you can't decide on January or June that you want to be safe harbor for 2015. It has to be in place prior to the beginning of the year. So just make sure those employers that you're working with know that. So some next steps here: examine your client base and potential prospects. If you know of a client who's considering signing on and wants to be safe harbor, make sure that they're aware of that September 15th deadline. Also look at your clients, and if they have, if they don't have safe harbor, if they're a plan that may have either failed testing prior years or come close to failing testing, make sure that they know that they may need to add safe harbor in order to pass this year. Also, other clients to look at are ones that maybe hired on some more highly compensated employees this year, or in turn maybe have less non-highly compensated employees. Those are clients who would be potentially set up for failure for testing purposes if they're not safe harbor. So take a look, let us know if we can help you at all. Of course, contact us if you have any questions about this. We would love to walk you through it and just explain anything to you about safe harbor that you don't understand. So keep those deadlines in mind, and yeah.
Thanks to all of you who are attending or watching this webinar. We really appreciate it, and I hope that this has been useful and educational for your purposes. If you happen to have any questions, again, we are Bonnie, Chris, and Gerard. We're the partnership support team at the Online 401k. You can reach us via phone at 855-401-7253 or by email at partnershipsupport@theonline401k. And we thought that we would end with some of the questions that we received on Safe Harbor. So Bonnie, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, so it looks like one came in. Why is Safe Harbor not a defaulted choice in plan design? The reason for that is not all employers can afford Safe Harbor. Obviously, they have to be okay with matching their employees at dollar for dollar up to 4, 5, or 6%. And you know, not all small businesses can afford that. It's a great option. Definitely advised if you're one of those at-risk plans that have a lot of highly compensated employees. But it's not a mandatory thing. So definitely recommended, not mandatory.
Bonnie, I can take this next question. For those of you listening, the question is, does a profit-sharing provision in my 401k plan get me out of testing as well? Though we think that the profit-sharing provision is an excellent facet to a 401k plan, it won't necessarily allow you to pass the annual IRS testing that your plan would have to go through. We consider Safe Harbor to truly be the silver bullet when it comes to avoiding any sort of IRS testing. So again, to reiterate, profit sharing, it's a great thing. It can be very beneficial to your employees, but Safe Harbor is really what's going to help you avoid the IRS testing.
All right, thanks, Chris. And I'm going to take on one of these last questions here. The question is there a cost to use Safe Harbor in a 401k plan? If you're establishing a new plan, then it would not cost anything to add it. It is simply one of the options that you can choose when establishing the plan. However, if you have a current client with us at the Online 401k and they don't happen to have Safe Harbor, but it's something that they should start looking into and they want to pull the trigger and go for it, adding Safe Harbor would incur a $195 charge. That is one time, and that is a plan amendment fee. We will get Safe Harbor added to your plan after a 30-day period of notifying your employees.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gerard. There's a few more questions coming in, but we will address those one-off after we're done here. So thank you all for listening. We're going to be sending around a recording a little later this afternoon, so look out for that if you want to share it with any of your clients or colleagues. So thanks again. We appreciate you listening in. You have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you.